Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be looking at something that I think all of us have struggled with at some point, and that's trying to memorize new vocabulary words,
Yeah, it really can be a struggle. I mean, you feel like you're making progress and then suddenly, poof, it's gone.
right? Like, where did it go? It was just here a second ago. So we want to do a deep dive into this and kind of figure out, like, what's the best way to actually make these words stick?
Yeah.
So we've gathered up all this great research articles, expert opinions, even some anecdotes.
Yeah, so we can really break it all down, figure out why certain techniques work, what's going on in the brain, and how you can use this in your own journey to build up your vocabulary.
Perfect. So I think one of the things that a lot of people try at first is just repetition, like the classic, writing it 100 times or using flashcards until they're practically see-through.
Right, you would think that would work, but the truth is our brains are craving more than just doing the same thing over and over. It doesn't create those deep connections that we need to remember things in the long term.
So it's not enough to just see it over and over. You got to actually like feel it, experience it, right?
Yeah, it's like trying to learn a dance by just reading the steps in a book. You might know the sequence, but you haven't really learned the moves until you get on your feet and try it out.
Exactly. So is that what we're saying here? Like we should be learning new words more like how we learned our first language?
That's a great point. Because think about it, babies don't learn language from flashcards. They're immersed in it all the time.
Right, they're like little vocabulary sponges, just soaking everything up.
That's it. They're constantly observing, listening, interacting, and that's how it all starts to click for them.
So are we saying we should all be learning new words like babies?
In a way, yeah. It's about tapping into that natural, intuitive learning process that we all have within us. And to help you do that, we've got 7 powerful techniques that go way beyond just rote memorization.
7 techniques. Okay, I'm listening. What's the first one?
Well, the first one is all about creating context. So instead of just looking at a word by itself, try using it in a sentence that describes something you've experienced or even just imagined.
So I think I get what you're saying, but could you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you're trying to learn the word exquisite. Instead of just repeating it over and over, try making a sentence like, the chef presented an exquisite dessert with a perfect balance of sweet and tart flavors.
Okay, so now it's not just a word. It's an experience like, I can almost taste that dessert.
That's it. Your brain is making connections, engaging more senses, and that's when the learning really starts to happen.
Gotcha. Okay, what's the next technique?
Let's try visualization. Our brains are very visual organs. We process images way faster and more deeply than just text.
So how do we do that with words?
Here's a little challenge. Close your eyes and try to picture the most colossal thing you can imagine.
Oh, I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed by the size of that image. And you're right, it's definitely a lot more memorable than just the word itself.
Exactly. You're using your brain's natural power to remember images. And this works for all kinds of words, not just the visual ones.
Okay, so sentences and visualization. What's next?
How about storytelling? Our brains are hardwired to understand and remember stories. It's how we make sense of the world.
Yeah, I mean, stories are how we connect, how we share experiences, how we pass on knowledge. But how can we use them to learn new words?
All right, I'm going to give you a little challenge here. Try weaving these words, ethereal, melancholy, serendipity, and epiphany, into a short story. Let your imagination run wild.
Challenge accepted. Okay, how about this? A young artist feeling a bit melancholy wanders through an ethereal forest. The sunlight's filtering through the leaves, and as she walks, she stumbles upon a hidden clearing. It's a moment of pure serendipity, and she has an epiphany that her sadness is just temporary, just a fleeting shadow against the backdrop of life's beauty.
Wow, that's amazing. You've taken these abstract words and turned them into a vivid emotional experience. I bet you're going to remember those words now.
I think you're right. The more senses you engage, the deeper the connection becomes. And everyone loves a good story, right? This is way more natural than just, memorizing definitions. What other techniques can we use to kind of tap into that natural learning ability?
Let's talk about something that might sound a bit mysterious. The memory palace.
The memory palace. Is that where we're going to store all these new words?
You could say that. It's all about associating new information with familiar places. Think of it like you're using your home or any place you know really well as a mental storage system.
So I'm creating a mental map of words using my house as the landscape.
Exactly. Let's say you're learning the word lamp. Now picture yourself walking into your bedroom and you see a lamp on your nightstand. But here's the trick. Make that lamp something really extraordinary. Maybe it's a giant disco ball spinning and casting lights all over the room.
I love it. So it's not just about placing the words in my house. It's about creating these really vivid images that go along with them. But what if my memory palace starts to get crowded with all these words?
That's a good question. You can start small focus on just one room or even just a part of a room. As you learn more, you can expand, add new rooms, new floors. You could even go outside into the garden or the neighborhood and get creative with the different features. Use the furniture decorations, even the smells.
Okay, the possibilities are endless. I can see how this could be a fun way to learn new words. But what about repetition? Does that still have a place in all of this?
Of course, repetition is still important, but you have to be strategic about it. It's not just mindlessly repeating something 100 times. It's about understanding something called the forgetting curve.
The forgetting curve. What's that?
It's basically this idea that we forget things pretty quickly after we learn them unless we actively review them. The forgetting curve shows us that we need to review things before we completely forget them and gradually increase the time between those reviews.
So no more just staring at flashcards and hoping for the best.
Right. We need a system, and there's this thing called spaced repetition, which is way more effective. Basically, you review a word at longer and longer intervals, like a few hours, then a day, then 3 days a week, and so on.
So it's like giving my brain those little nudges to hold on to those words. But that sounds like I need a personal vocabulary trainer to keep track of all of that.
You know what? There are these awesome apps like Anki and Quizlet that can help with that. They basically act like your own personal vocabulary assistants. They schedule those reviews and they keep track of your progress.
Okay, I'm definitely checking those out. But let's not forget about actually using those words.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's not enough to just memorize them. We've got to actually put them to use.
You're absolutely right. Speaking and using new words out loud is how you really master them. It's like taking your vocabulary for a test drive.
So how can we make that a part of our everyday lives?
There are so many ways. Find a language partner, join a conversation group, or even just narrate your day out loud. Describe what you see, what you're doing, anything that comes to mind. Just find those opportunities to use the words naturally.
So even talking to myself.
Why not? It might feel a little weird at first, but it's a great way to get comfortable using new words. Practice different scenarios, experiment with phrases, and just get those words flowing.
All right, I have to say I'm feeling a lot more optimistic about expanding my vocabulary. It's not just about memorization. It's about engaging with those words in a multisensory, creative, and fun way.
Exactly. We've got 7 core techniques that tap into how our brains are naturally wired to learn, creating context, visualization, storytelling, the memory palace-spaced, repetition, active usage, and yes, even talking to yourself.
I love it.
Yeah.
We've got all these tools now to build up our vocabulary, but is there anything else we can add to our toolkit?
You bet. We've got a whole set of bonus techniques to really supercharge your learning.
Bonus techniques. Okay, I'm ready. What have you got?
Okay, so let's talk about those bonus techniques. Have you ever noticed how words that are tied to strong emotions tend to stick in your memory better?
You know, now that you mentioned it, I can remember words that have like a really strong emotional charge. Whether it's positive or negative, they definitely stay with me longer.
Exactly, because our brains are wired to pay more attention to things that have an emotional impact. So when you're learning a new word, try to connect it to a memory, a feeling, a sensory experience, something personal.
Oh, I see. So instead of just memorizing the definition of like joy, I could think back to a time when I felt really joyful, like when I achieved a big goal or something.
Exactly. You're adding that emotional layer to the word, making it more personal and therefore more memorable. And it doesn't always have to be positive. Sometimes even a slightly negative or funny association can help.
Right. It's like those embarrassing moments that you just can't seem to forget no matter how hard you try. Okay, so emotions, check. What else can we add to our vocabulary boosting toolbox?
Let's talk about the notebook method. This one's especially helpful for people who are visual learners or kinesthetic learners.
Okay, I love a good notebook. But isn't that just about writing down definitions?
It's more than that. Think colors drawings, mind maps, diagrams, anything that helps you really engage with the word on multiple levels.
Oh, I see. So if I was learning the word serene, I could write it in blue cursive, maybe draw a calm lake surrounded by mountains.
Exactly. You're creating a multi-sensory experience, a personalized representation of the word. That's going to stick with you a lot longer than just a boring definition.
I love it. So it's like turning your vocabulary list into a piece of art. The notebook method is definitely going in my toolkit. What about mnemonics? I remember using those in school, but they always felt a bit silly.
Mnemonics might be silly, but they work. They use humor, rhymes, or acronyms to help you remember things. It's like creating a little mental shortcut.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you're trying to remember the word gregarious. You could create a mnemonic like Greg the Arius party host loves to gather people together.
Yeah.
See, the sillier the better.
Okay, so like a little jingle that gets stuck in your head and helps you remember the word. What other memory boosting techniques are out there?
Let's revisit those spaced repetition systems and those apps like Anki and Quizlet.
I have a feeling they're about to become my new best friends. I'm ready to embrace a system that helps me review words strategically and move them into my long-term memory. Cramming is just not sustainable.
Right, spaced repetition takes the guesswork out of it. It's like having a personal vocabulary trainer in your pocket.
I love that analogy. Okay, so we've got spaced repetition systems, the notebook method, mnemonics. What else can we add to our arsenal? We talked a bit about active usage, but I think it deserves more attention. It's not enough to just passively learn words. You need to actively use them in speaking and writing to make them stick.
Absolutely. Challenge yourself to use a new word in a conversation every day. Maybe write a blog post using a handful of new words, or even just post a witty comment on social media using a newly learned word.
Those are great ideas. Any opportunity to use those words in real life is going to help.
It's about taking those words out for a spin. And while we're at it, why not immerse yourself in the English language as much as possible?
You mean like surrounding myself with English, watch movies, listen to podcasts, read books?
Exactly. But the key is to actively engage with the content. Don't just passively consume it. Try to predict what someone will say. Repeat phrases out loud. Write down new words you encounter.
Turn my daily life into an English language learning adventure.
That's the spirit. It's not just about quantity, it's about quality.
I need to be an active participant, not just a passive observer.
That's how you make immersion truly effective. And speaking of actively using English, let's talk about the power of conversation.
Time to dust off my language exchange app and find some conversation partners.
Conversation is where the rubber meets the road. It forces you to think on your feet.
It does. And to actively retrieve those words from my memory.
Exactly. And to see how they work in real-time communication.
You're right. Conversation is such a powerful way to solidify new vocabulary, whether it's with a language partner, a tutor, or even just talking to myself in the mirror. The key is to keep those words flowing.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we learn.
Mistakes are just opportunities for growth. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from creating context and using visualization to embracing spaced repetition and active usage. We've even touched on the power of conversation and immersion. It's amazing how many different approaches there are to learning new words.
It's all about finding what works best for you and making it a regular part of your routine.
And remember, learning English is a journey. It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress.
Enjoy the process, embrace the challenges, and celebrate every little victory along the way.
Well said. And now for the fun part.
The fun part? I'm all ears.
Because learning new words doesn't have to be all about flashcards and repetition.
Yeah.
It can be fun. It can be engaging. It can even be a little bit silly.
Silly, I like the sound of that.
So get ready to unleash your creativity, tap into your playful side, and discover a whole new world of vocabulary learning techniques.
I'm ready. Let's do this.
One of my favorite fun techniques is word association games.
Word association games. Like what?
You know, you think of a word and then try to come up with as many different things as you can that are related to that word.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's say the word is sparkling. What comes to mind?
Sparkling. Let me see. Fireworks. A shiny necklace. A glass of champagne. A freshly cleaned countertop.
Perfect. The more connections you make, the easier it will be to remember the word.
So I'm basically creating a web of associations in my mind.
That's it. And you can do this on your own or with a friend. It turns learning into a game.
Okay, word association games noted. What else?
Another fun way to remember words is through storytelling.
Oh, I love a good story.
Create little stories using the new words you've learned. The sillier, the better.
So let's say I'm trying to learn the word enormous. What kind of story could we come up with?
How about a story about an enormous pizza that's so big it needs its own zip code?
Ah, I love it.
Yeah.
The more outlandish the story, the more memorable it will be. It's all about creating those vivid images.
Okay, storytelling check.
Yeah.
What else can we add to our vocabulary learning toolbox?
Vocabulary scavenger hunts.
Scavenger hunts. Now you're talking.
You can challenge yourself to find new words in books, movies, or even just out in the world.
So if I'm reading a book, I can make a list of all the new words I come across.
Exactly. Or if you're watching a movie, try to write down 5 new words you hear and then use them in your own sentences later.
I love that. It's like turning everyday life into a game.
And it keeps things fun and engaging.
Okay, scavenger hunts, check.
Karaoke.
Karaoke, wait. Very.
Yes, karaoke can actually be a really effective way to learn new words.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think about it. When you're singing a song, you're repeating those lyrics over and over again, which helps with memorization.
That makes sense.
And you're also paying attention to pronunciation and rhythm, which helps you get those sounds into your system.
So it's a multi-sensory learning experience.
Exactly. You're engaging your visual, auditory, and kinesthetic senses all at once.
I never thought of karaoke as a language learning tool, but I'm totally on board.
Give it a try. Pick a song you love, learn the lyrics, and sing your heart out.
Challenge accepted. What other fun techniques do you have up your sleeve?
Role play.
Role playing. You mean like acting out different scenarios?
Exactly. Find a friend or even just practice on your own and pretend you're in different situations where you can use your new vocabulary.
So like pretending to order food at a restaurant or asking for directions?
Exactly. It's a great way to practice speaking without feeling too much pressure, and you can see how those words would actually be used in real life.
And it's definitely more fun than just repeating words from a list.
Absolutely. It brings the language to life.
Okay, role-playing added to the list.
Right.
What's next?
Word quizzes.
Quizzes. Sounds a bit like school.
But you can make them fun, create your own quizzes using the words you've learned, or find some online.
So it's a way to test myself and track my progress.
Exactly. And when you get those answers right, it feels good. It motivates you to keep going.
Okay, word quizzes noted. What other fun techniques do you have in store for us?
Comics or cartoons?
Comics. I love comics.
If you like drawing, create your own comic strip using the new words you've learned. If you're not an artist, you can always find some comics online.
I can see how the pictures would help you remember the meanings of the words.
Exactly. It's a really fun and engaging way to learn.
Okay, comics added to the list. Wow, we've covered so many different techniques today. It's amazing how much variety there is.
It's all about finding what works for you, what sparks your interest and makes learning enjoyable. Because when you're having fun, you're more likely to stick with it and see those results.
Absolutely. So go out there, experiment, try new things, and discover the joy of learning new words. I know I'm feeling inspired. How about you?
Me too. I can't wait to try out some of these techniques myself.
So what's one technique you're excited to try?
I think I'm going to give the vocabulary scavenger hunt a go.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah.
I might try making some word quizzes.
You'd be great at that. You have a knack for coming up with creative and challenging questions.
Well, thank you. So, dear listener, what about you? What fun vocabulary learning technique are you going to try today?
Pick one that speaks to you and have fun with it.
Because learning English should be an adventure, not a chore.
Exactly. So embrace the challenge, have fun, and watch your vocabulary grow.
Well said.
Speaking of growth, I think it's time we move on to the next stage of our vocabulary journey.
Ooh, what's next?
We're going to dive into some advanced techniques that'll help you take your vocabulary skills to a whole new level.
Advanced techniques. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Are you ready to unlock the secrets of vocabulary mastery?
Absolutely. Lead the way. All right, I'm ready to unlock those secrets. Hit me with those advanced techniques.
One of the most effective things you can do is create your own personal dictionary.
A personal dictionary. That sounds pretty ambitious.
It might sound like a lot, but it's actually really simple and it's super rewarding.
Okay, I'm listening. Tell me more.
Imagine having this collection of words that are meaningful to you, words that you've found in books or heard in conversations, words that you actually use.
I see what you mean. It's like a curated vocabulary library, but it's tailored to my interests.
Exactly. It's a way to take charge of your learning, and you can always go back to it as a reference.
Okay, I like it. So how do I get started?
First, you gotta choose a format that works for you. It could be a notebook, a digital doc, a spreadsheet, even an app. There are lots of options.
So whatever is easiest for me to use and access.
Exactly. And then whenever you come across a new word that you want to learn, you add it to your dictionary.
Okay, but I don't just write down the word, right?
Right. You want to add as much information as possible.
Like the definition, the part of speech, example sentences.
All that good stuff. And you can even go further, add synonyms, antonyms, related words.
Ooh, I like that.
And to make it even more personal, you can add notes about where you found the word, how it made you feel, any connections you have to it.
So that's not just a list of words. It's like a record of my language learning journey.
Exactly. It grows and changes as you do.
I love it. It's like my own personal vocabulary treasure chest.
I like that. And the best part is you can make it your own. Tailor it to how you learn best.
I'm totally starting a personal dictionary today. But what about those times when I come across a word and I just can't seem to remember it?
That's where those memory techniques come in handy.
Okay, remind me what those are again.
Well, we've already talked about some of them, like visualization, storytelling, mnemonics.
Right, but there are even more advanced techniques we can use.
There are. And one of the most powerful ones is called the memory palace, or the method of loci.
Oh, yeah, the memory palace. We talked about that earlier.
Exactly. It's all about connecting information with specific locations in a familiar place, like your home.
So if I'm trying to remember a list of words, I can imagine putting each word in a different room in my house.
Exactly. And the more vivid the image, the better.
So, like, I can imagine the word exquisite hanging from a chandelier in my dining room.
Yeah.
Or serendipity floating in the bathtub.
Perfect. The key is to create those crazy, memorable associations that will help you remember.
And the cool thing is you can use the memory palace for all kinds of stuff, not just vocabulary.
Right. It's a really versatile technique.
Okay, the memory palace is going on my list of things to try. What other memory tricks do you have for us?
Another good one is called chunking.
Chunking.
What's that?
It's basically breaking down large amounts of information into smaller, easier to manage pieces.
So instead of trying to remember a huge list of words, I could break it down into groups of 5 or 10.
Exactly. And you can group them any way that makes sense to you. By theme, by part of speech, or even just by how they sound.
Exactly. By breaking things down into smaller chunks, you make it easier for your brain to digest and remember.
It's like breaking down a long road trip into shorter, more manageable drives.
Perfect analogy. And like the memory palace, chunking works for all sorts of information, not just vocabulary.
Okay, chunking, check. Anything else we can do to give our memory a boost?
Acronyms and acrostics can be helpful too.
Refresh my memory. What are those again?
An acronym is a word made up of the first letters of a phrase, like NATO.
Right, North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
Exactly. And an acrostic is kind of like a poem where the first letter of each line spells out a word or phrase.
So I'm trying to remember a list of vocabulary words. I could make an acronym or acrostic using the first letter of each word.
You got it. It's a fun way to make the information stick.
Okay, acronyms and acrostics. Got it. Wow, we've covered so much today. It's amazing how many different ways there are to improve our vocabulary.
It's all about finding what works best for you and making it part of your routine.
And remembering that learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about progress, not perfection.
You said it. Enjoy the process, embrace the challenges, and celebrate all the little wins along the way.
Absolutely. And now for the grand finale. We've got some bonus tips and tricks that'll take your vocabulary to a whole new level.
Bonus tips. Let's hear them.
Get ready to unlock the ultimate vocabulary mastery.
I'm all ears.
One of the most important things you can do is read as much as possible.
Reading. A classic for a reason.
It is. Reading exposes you to tons of vocabulary and context, which helps you learn new words naturally.
And it's enjoyable, too.
Exactly. So pick books, magazines, articles, websites that interest you, and make reading a regular habit. What else can we do to boost our vocabulary?
Pay attention to the language all around you.
So not just when I'm studying, but in my everyday life.
Exactly. Listen to conversations, watch movies, read signs, pay attention to advertising.
Become a language detective.
Exactly. You'd be surprised how many new words you pick up just by being more aware.
Okay, language detective mode activated. What other tips do you have?
Use a thesaurus.
A thesaurus. I haven't used one of those in ages.
They're great for expanding your vocabulary. They help you find synonyms for words you already know.
So if I'm writing and I keep using the same word over and over, I can use a thesaurus to find different options.
Exactly. It helps you vary your language and makes your writing more interesting.
Okay, thesaurus. Check. What's next?
Play word games.
Word games. Always a good time.
They're not just fun, they're a fantastic way to learn new words and improve your vocabulary.
Like Scrabble, Boggle, crossword puzzles.
Exactly. And there are so many word games online and on your phone.
Something for everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay, word games. Check. What else can we do to become vocabulary virtuosos?
Don't forget about flashcards.
Flashcards. Aren't those a little old school?
Maybe, but they're still super effective for memorizing new words.
Okay, I'm listening.
You can make your own with index cards, or there are apps like Anki and Quizlet.
We talked about those before.
Exactly. They're great for spaced repetition, which helps you remember things long term.
So flashcards still have a place in our vocabulary learning arsenal.
Absolutely. Especially when you combine them with other techniques.
Okay, flashcards are back in the game. What else is on our list of bonus tips?
Set realistic goals.
Realistic goals. Good advice for anything in life, really.
It is, and it's especially important for language learning.
Because if we set our goals too high, we're more likely to get discouraged.
Exactly. So start small and gradually increase your goals as you go.
Don't try to learn 1,000 words overnight.
Right. Focus on quality over quantity.
Okay, realistic goals? Check. Any other words of wisdom for us?
Be patient.
Patience is key, especially with language learning.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Don't get discouraged if you don't see results right away.
Exactly. It takes time and effort to build a strong vocabulary.
But it's so worth it.
It really is.
Okay, patience, check. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Just remember, learning English is a journey. It's about exploring and discovering new things.
It's about connecting with other cultures and enriching our lives.
So embrace the challenge, have fun, and never stop learning.
I love that. It's been a great deep dive into how to memorize new English words.
It really has. We started out feeling a little overwhelmed by all the words out there, but now we've got all these strategies and techniques to help us conquer them.
We've busted some myths, we've learned about how memory works, we've discovered that learning can be fun, and we've realized that learning new words doesn't have to be a chore.
And most importantly, we've learned that language learning is a journey, a process of growth and discovery.
So keep exploring, keep experimenting, keep pushing yourself, and most importantly, keep having fun.
Because the world of English words is huge, and there's always something new to discover.
What an inspiring way to end our deep dive into memorizing new English words. Until next time, happy learning, everyone.
Happy learning.